Hi everyone, it's Winning, it's live online. It's so good to be with you tonight. So sorry about last week. For some reason, Facebook on my iPad was just having a moment. I don't know what moment it was having, but I wasn't able to assist it get out of its moment. But today we're together again, and I'm so happy to be able to be joining you. I hope you've had a good 2 weeks, because it's a while since I've seen you. The last time I saw you, we were in February, and now we're in March. And yeah, it's just, I'm really looking forward to tonight. We're looking at Better Together. And I think it's such an important concept, and it's not a concept, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of doing life in community. And, we were designed for relationship. We're designed for community. Hey, everyone jumping on. Hey, Jen. Hey, Carla. And, just looking at in our church, hey, Trace, at the moment where this week, in fact, we've launched Grow City Groups, which is all about building community and, oh, thanks, Jen, building community and really just bringing people together and doing life together and building into people's lives. And so I just thought it quite fitting tonight to look at Together is actually so much better. And so again, hey, Ronica, if you're new to this platform, my name is Debbie and I am the lead pastor of an amazing church, A City Church, which it's just Sundays is such an exciting time to be at church. I mean, it's just incredible what God's doing in our church at the moment. Super exciting. And so please share if you think tonight's relevant to someone and you need to encourage them. Good to like, great to send emojis during the session. And then I know that you are out there, and B, that something is resonating with you. Hey, Lexi. Hey, George and Christine. So good to have you both with us. And so great seeing you at home a few Sundays ago. And A City Church will always be your home. For those of you who don't know, George and Christine are actually our church grandparents. And we've just loaned them to another church because they relocated. Juliet, good to see you. And so again, as always, clear your mind from any of the events that happened today. Stuff that you still need to do. Like, this is just your space. This is between you and the Lord. And so zone out all other distractions. The Lord really challenged me on distractions this morning, because I'll literally open my eyes at 5:30 in the morning and want to get straight into work. And like the Lord is, no, you need to focus on me first. I want the first fruits of your time. And so distractions been quite a big challenge for me today. So put those distractions aside. Make notes, have something that you can make a note on. Maybe a word might just inspire or challenge or motivate you in some way. And so let's get going tonight. So Together is so much better. If you think about it, having coffee with someone else makes coffee so much better. Brainstorming, it's fine to do it by yourself, but it's so much better to do it with others. Washing the dishes can be done on your own, but it's so much better if one washes, one dries, and one packs away. Sometimes better together is not always easy. If you are doing a team effort, if you're working as a team, and if you're the leader and maybe you need to explain and teach and train people who are on your team. Maybe before people who joined your team got there, they had to be convinced to work as a team. They had to be bribed to work as a team. There are many challenges in working together with others, but the benefits far outweigh the challenges. Sometimes you may be in a space where it's great working as a team, but you know what? It's so much easier if I just do it myself. And we're not designed to function like that. If you look at Jesus, when Jesus came, Jesus could quite comfortably have come to earth as a baby and done his 3 years of ministry all by himself. He could have probably done it with incredible results. But that's not how God, A, designed Jesus to function. And B, when Jesus came, he patterned for us how we need to do it, how we need to live life. And so Jesus takes let's look at the core group, which were the 12 disciples for him. He takes these 12, and, you know, these guys, a lot of them came from really rough background. Some of them were educated, most of them weren't. They were just fishermen. He called them, they came, they were incredibly enthusiastic, but he had to teach them so much. He had to be so patient with them. And there were times when Jesus got really mad with the disciples because they just weren't getting it. But he was patient and he was persistent. And, you know, the amazing part of that is that Jesus could have done it all by himself. But because he loves us so much, as with the disciples, he calls us to collectively work with him, because he's entrusting the lives of others into our hands. And there's training, and there's equipping, and there's successorship, and there's leaving your footprint, and it's leaving behind a legacy. But all of that is done together. All of that is done in groups. Love the scripture in Ecclesiastes 4 verses 9 to 10 in the Amplified translation. And it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a more satisfying return for their labor. For if either one of them falls, the other will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and doesn't have anyone to pick him up. It is good maybe on your own, but it's a lot better together. And so I love the example that Jesus gave us. And if you look at with the disciples, there's kind of a constant tension that was developed. You know, Jesus was discipling and imparting and training them. And then they in turn were discipling and training others. So looking at us as we work together with others, we need to be in a constant state of we're being discipled, we're being trained, we're being equipped, and then we're doing that for someone else. So it's a constant process of receiving and passing it on. You know, if you get to a place where no one is impacting or imparting or inputting into your life, and you're just doing that for others, well, that's where we get depleted and we just run on empty. But when we're receiving and when we're giving, it energizes, it fills, it motivates, it keeps us moving and keeps us moving forward and moving forward well and strong. And yes, we can live doing it by ourselves, but there's so much more in doing it as a team. Yes, it's frustrating working often in a team, in a workspace, in a whatever space. But, you know, it's when you're working with people and seeing transformation and seeing growth and seeing development in people. That's what it's all about. I love where Jesus said in Mark 8:17-21, and he speaks to his disciples and he says, why are you arguing about having no bread? Don't you know or understand even yet? This is him talking to his disciples. Are your hearts too hard to take it in? You have eyes, can't you see? You have ears, can't you hear? Don't you remember anything at all when I fed the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread, and how many baskets of leftovers did you pick up afterwards? 12, they said. And when I fed the 4,000 with 7 loaves, how many baskets of leftovers did you pick up? 7, they said. Don't you understand yet? He asked them. You can just hear the frustration of Jesus. I mean, the disciples were living with him. They were ministering with him. They did everything together. They saw the miracles, but they still didn't get it. And so if you're getting frustrated with someone maybe in the workspace and they're just not getting it, Jesus gets your frustration, but call on him to give you what you need to help that person to move into the space where they're meant to be moving into. And if you're working with someone like that at the moment, the Lord's put that person there to stretch you, to teach you resilience, to teach you patience, and maybe to teach you a different kind of way of imparting and developing and growing people in your space. Because what works once in terms of working with people is probably not going to work all the time, because we don't get textbook people. People are people, and people are diverse, and people are so different. But together is better, and together is the design that God has created for us to function in. You know, Jesus chose that model. He chose the model of passing on. He chose the model of building relationships. He chose the model of us building communities, because that's where the strength lies. If you think about it, when Jesus went to go and look, when the shepherd went to go and look for the one sheep, he left the 99 because they were safe in the community. But when we're isolated and when we're on our own, we're incredibly vulnerable. We're not covered. There's a huge gap. And the enemy will always try and isolate us and get us on our own island, because then we're vulnerable. We're susceptible to his, for example, discouragement and his voice of accusation and his voice of lies. But when we're in community, there's that covering, there's that prayer protection, there's the when one is down, we're all down. You know, it's that sense of solidarity, it's that sense of unity. And yes, there are times when groups malfunction, and that's part of it. That's part of the deal. That's part of growing. That's part of learning. When stuff malfunctions, it's often when you need to look for alternative ways of functioning. I'm circling back to what I said just now. Just because a certain type of group building dynamic works once doesn't mean it's going to work all the time. If I look at the church, for example, A City Church is about 8% full-time staff. The rest is volunteer. The rest are people who serve. And that's the way the Lord designed it. He designed it where the church would be primarily run by people who are volunteering their time, because we're saved to serve. So serving, when we serve in the church, it's not a job. You know, if you think of, you have a skill set, you maybe went to varsity, you work, you're impacting and influencing the lives of others using your skill set, and you get a salary. And that's cool and awesome, and you get developed in your workspace, and maybe you study further and you climb up the corporate ladder. But when it comes to serving in the church, you're actually fulfilling your destiny. So when you're serving in God's house, you're actually being developed as a person holistically. So by not serving, you're not going to reach your full potential as a person, even though you may have an amazing job in terms of your secular field. But it's when we serve, something happens when we serve as part of a community in our church, because it's a supernatural, it's a divine, holistic development and releasing as who we are as people. It's not just about giving your time. It's not just about giving a skill set. It's about becoming part of a community that God designed to move in and to reach and lift lives and connect people to Jesus. But it's also the community in which you will find your full and total development as a human. And so the involvement of others is essential in seeing us being developed and grown and stretched as people. You know, we gain strength and wisdom from others as we work in a community, as we serve in a community at church. Iron sharpens iron. It's where our skill set, our abilities as people is honed and sharpened, and it's refined. And it's an amazing thing when we serve as a community in our spiritual home. When we disconnect from people and we go it alone, it's an interesting choice of word I'm going to use. We actually uncouple from a strength that we may need further down the line. We uncouple from a backup that will help us carry things forward. And we can't afford to be uncoupling from communities that God has given us for strength, for wisdom, for backup. I understand when we're going through a tough time, sometimes we do need to retract for a season and just kind of think things through and analyze and process. But don't stay like that. We need to be part of a community because together is better. I mean, if we look at Ruth and Naomi in the book of Ruth, you've got a mother and daughter-in-law from totally different cultures. Naomi wanted to return to Jerusalem on her own. Her one daughter-in-law remains and she stays with her family. But Ruth insists on sticking with Naomi. And it may have been a burden for Naomi. I mean, Naomi was in a place of deep despair. She'd lost everything, her husband, her sons, there were no grandchildren. She went back to Jerusalem as a poverty-stricken widow, and now to have an extra person that she has to look after, it possibly was a burden. But when we look at as they settle in and as they find their space and just seeing God's provision and God moving in the strength of that powerful partnership. Elimelech, which is Naomi's late husband's kinsman redeemer, actually rescues Ruth and Naomi from poverty. He marries Ruth, and their son Obadiah is in the genealogy of Jesus because he's the future father of Jesse, who becomes the father of David, who is in the genealogy of Jesus. So if we look at just that story alone, I mean, if Naomi had done it alone, I don't think she would have ended up where she ended up, which was with her dreams fulfilled. All she wanted was grandchildren and a family. And the Lord gave her that through the power of better together and not doing it on your own. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a form of strength, because it means working with others where you're in a space where you're confident enough to actually lean on others. I look at in my own space, I love collaborating with others. I've done it on my own for a long time, where it's just me thinking and scheming and strategizing and planning, but I love doing it with others. I love learning from others. I love bouncing ideas around. I love building concepts and, putting something together and taking out and adding in and shifting and planning and sorting and then seeing things work and seeing things work well. It is better together. It's better together. And so a couple of questions that I just want to kind of land with tonight. Who are you currently mentoring or training? Whether it be in your workspace, in your church space, in your home space, who are you intentionally mentoring and training? And if your answer is nobody, you need to look at, because that's part of what it means for you to grow as an individual. You need to be mentoring someone in some way. My second question is an obvious second question. Who are you being mentored by? Who's discipling you? Who's mentoring you? Who's speaking into your life? Again, if there isn't anyone, you need to change that. And you don't necessarily have to have a person. Maybe it's someone you follow online who is a reputable person to follow online, whose life fruits are worthy of you following online. But, who's inputting and impacting your life? Who are you accountable to? And accountability is part of being better together. It's where, I want to be accountable to someone. It's an accountability brings with it responsibility. It's like and vulnerability. I'm going through a tough time. I need you to help me with this. Or, I've given this up because I want to move to this space. I want you to hold me to my decision. And if you see me wavering off that decision, I give you permission to speak into my life. That's what an accountability together relationship looks like. Do you have that? Who do you lean on for wisdom and guidance? Or are you the one everyone else always comes to? Who are you going to? And if there's a no with all of these, it's like, don't feel condemned. It's like, Lord, show me. I want to move and grow And in order to do that, if I want to see change, I need to change something in my life. Fifth question, who can you invite into your life as a contributor and move from being a spectator? Who can you invite into your life as a contributor and move from being a spectator? And the last question is, where do you need to slow down and involve others? You know, sometimes we can be so busy accomplishing and doing, and when we look around, it's a realization I'm actually doing it on my own. Yeah, you're probably accomplishing much and doing much, but it's not God's design for your life. And your productivity isn't necessarily in how many finish lines you're crossing. Your productivity and your development and your success is in the strength of relationships that you're building. How strong are those? You know, it's great to cross the finish line with an accomplishment. But God looks at how many relationships, how many did you build? How many lives did you impact? Who are you intentionally discipling? Whose life are you shaping? And so tonight, I think, has been a challenge on quite a few levels. I think it started off by looking at the actual significance, the godly significance of better together. It's not just a cute phrase. It's actually a godly design. We are developed and we reach our fullness in being together with the right people. We've also looked at tonight the tension that needs to be kept. People speaking into and discipling and developing our lives, and us in turn doing that to someone else. So it's a very healthy tension. It's looking at, there is a cost in being better together. And sometimes that cost is patience and resilience. But when you look at the reward, it far outweighs the cost. And so my prayer for you tonight is, maybe you need to reassess a couple of patterns in your life. Maybe you're the one that everyone leans on, but who are you leaning on? And yes, I know we lean on the Lord, but He also gives us people to lean on. Maybe you're not impacting anyone's life, and you know, you've got a lot to offer. And it doesn't have to be in a formal way. It can be you influencing and impacting your children. You're influencing and impacting your grandchildren, but we need to be influencing and impacting someone, because together is better. And so I hope that I've maybe just challenged you to align a couple of your habits and make them good habits. And it's a habit where it's just seeing from a godly perspective the powerful importance of partnerships. Look at Ruth and Naomi, a powerful partnership, not an easy partnership, but it was powerful, that brought great rewards. So this week, as you go into the rest of it, look at intentionally developing better together, intentionally developing powerful partnerships. Appreciate the partnerships you have. Do you tell people who you are in partnership with that you value and appreciate them? Be grateful for who you have. And so God bless all of you. Can't wait to see you next week. Have a fabulous rest of the week. Take care, everyone. Bye.